At the edge of the Andromeda cluster, far from the light of any living star, there floated a station that most beings had forgotten. It was called Omega 7, and it was old. Very old. The metal walls were dark and cold. The lights flickered sometimes, as if the station itself was tired of being awake. Omega 7 was a prison, but it was not a prison for criminals or thieves. It held only one prisoner, one being that the entire galaxy feared more than death itself. They called it the Dragon. The Dragon had been locked inside for 1,238 years. That was longer than some species had existed. It was longer than most civilizations could remember, but the Galactic Council remembered. They made sure everyone remembered. In the old stories, the ones that parents told their children to make them behave, the dragon was a monster. It had come from the dark spaces between galaxies. It had fire in its blood and stars in its eyes. During the Great Celestial War, it had burned 3 entire star systems. Billions of lives were lost in moments. The screams of dying worlds could be heard across the void. Fleets had tried to stop it. Thousands of ships from dozens of species had gathered together. They had fired every weapon they had, but the dragon had destroyed them all. It had moved through the fleets like a shadow through light. Nothing could hurt it. Nothing could slow it down. In the end, the greatest minds of the galaxy had worked together. They had built special chains made of crystallized light. They had created psionic dampeners that could quiet even the loudest mind. They had trapped the dragon in a cell the size of a small moon and locked it away forever. That was 1,238 years ago. Now a single guard station floated near the prison chamber. Inside the station, a Vorath named Corvus watched the monitors with his 4 yellow eyes. The Vorath were a reptilian species, cold-blooded and proud. They had been the first to capture the dragon, and they still held the honor of watching it. Corvus did not feel honored. He felt afraid. He had been a guard on Omega 7 for 15 years. In all that time, he had never once looked directly at the prisoner. The screens showed only data, temperature readings, energy levels, and the status of the chains. There were no cameras inside the cell. There had been cameras once, long ago, but everyone who watched the footage had gone mad. That was the thing about the dragon. You did not need to touch it to be destroyed. You did not need to fight it. You only needed to look at it, to see it, to let it see you. In year 412 of the imprisonment, a security team had entered the cell. They were Vorath soldiers, the best of the best. 20 warriors in heavy armor with weapons that could crack planets. They had gone inside to check the chains. None of them came out sane. When the rescue team finally opened the door, they found the soldiers sitting in a circle, weeping. Their scales had turned white. Their eyes were empty. They spoke in languages that did not exist. Some of them simply screamed until their throats gave out. The dragon had not moved. It had not attacked. It had only watched. After that day, the council made a new rule. The only rule that mattered on Omega 7. Observe, never approach. For 800 years, that rule had kept everyone safe. The dragon stayed in its cell. The guards stayed in their stations, and the galaxy slowly forgot that the monster was real. But now something was changing. Corvus stared at his monitors with growing fear. The numbers were wrong. They had been wrong for 3 months now. The dragon's vital readings were unstable. Its body temperature was dropping. The energy in the chains was weakening. At first, Corvus had thought it was a malfunction, old equipment breaking down, but the council had sent engineers to check. They had confirmed that the equipment was working perfectly. The problem was not the machines. The problem was the dragon itself. It was dying. Corvus did not know how he felt about that. Part of him was relieved. If the dragon died, the galaxy would finally be safe. No more fear, no more nightmares. But another part of him was terrified. Because if the dragon was dying, then something was killing it. And if something could kill a being that powerful, What did that mean for the rest of them? The council had called an emergency meeting. Representatives from every major species had gathered on the capital world to discuss the situation. Corvus had watched the broadcast on his personal screen. The Voreth leaders had spoken first. They wanted to do nothing. Let the dragon die. Let it fade away into nothing. The threat would be over. The insectoid Krell collective had disagreed. They wanted to study the dragon before it died. It was the only being of its kind. Its body might hold secrets that could benefit all species. The Velani, a species of tall, elegant beings with silver skin, had raised concerns about the chains. If the dragon was dying, the chains might be absorbing its energy. If they overloaded, the explosion could destroy half the cluster. For hours the council had argued, they had debated, they had disagreed about everything. But on one point they all agreed. Someone needed to go inside the cell. Someone needed to check the chains directly. Someone needed to look at the dragon and figure out what was happening. But the question was, who? The Voreth refused. They remembered what had happened to the security team 800 years ago. They would not sacrifice more of their people. The Krell collective also refused. Their hive mind made them vulnerable. If one of them went mad, the madness might spread to all of them. The Velani refused. The Krillians refused. The Morphari refused. Every species in the council had a reason why they could not send their people into that cell. And then someone suggested the humans. Humanity had only been part of the Galactic Council for 11 years. They were young. They were new. Most species did not take them seriously. Humans were small, weak, and lived such short lives. They had no natural weapons, no special powers, no advanced evolution. But they were also strange. Humans did not react to things the way other species did. They laughed at danger. They made jokes about death. They had survived on a planet that seemed designed to kill them, and they had done it by being stubborn and refusing to die. Some council members thought humans were foolish. Others thought they were brave. But everyone agreed on one thing. If any species could walk into that cell and walk out again with their minds intact, it might be the humans. The council sent an official invitation to Earth. And Earth said yes. Far away, in the dark and cold of Omega-7, Corvus received the news. A human team was coming. 4 humans would enter the cell of the dragon and try to find answers. Corvus did not think they would succeed. He thought they would die or go mad just like everyone else. But as he looked at his monitors, at the strange readings that made no sense, he realized something. He was hopping. For the first time in 15 years, he was actually hopping. Maybe the humans would surprise them all. Captain Menu Park was eating breakfast when the message arrived. He was sitting in the small kitchen of his apartment on Earth, in the city of Busan, enjoying a bowl of rice and soup. His daughter, Jiwoo, was playing with her toys on the floor. His wife, Yoonji, was getting ready for work. It was a normal morning, a peaceful morning. Then his communicator beeped. Minyu looked at the screen and frowned. The message was from the Galactic Operations Division. It was marked with the highest level of urgency. That was strange. He had been on leave for 2 weeks. He was supposed to have another week before returning to duty. He opened the message and read it 3 times. Then he put down his spoon and stared at nothing for a long moment. Yoonji noticed the look on his face. She had been married to him for 8 years. She knew that look. It meant something big was happening. "What is it?" she asked. Minyu did not answer right away. He was still trying to process what he had read. The Galactic Council wanted him to lead a team into the cell of the dragon, the creature that had burned 3 star systems, the monster that drove people insane just by looking at them. "I have to go to headquarters," he said finally. "Something came up." Yoonji did not ask more questions. She understood. Being married to a soldier meant accepting that some things could not be explained. She simply kissed his cheek and told him to be careful. Jiwoo ran up to him and hugged his leg. She was only 5 years old. She did not understand what her father did for work. She only knew that sometimes he had to go away for a while. "Come back soon, okay?" she said. Minyu knelt down and hugged her tight. "I will," he promised. "I always do." 3 hours later, Minyu was standing in a briefing room at the headquarters of the Galactic Operations Division. The room was full of high-ranking officers and government officials. Screens on the walls showed images and data about Omega-7 and its prisoner. General Kang, the commander of the division, stood at the front of the room. He was an old man with gray hair and sharp eyes. He had fought in the Mars Reclamation Wars alongside Minyu. He was the one who had chosen Minyu for this mission. "I will not lie to you," General Kang said. "This mission is extremely dangerous. Every species that has entered that cell has either died or lost their minds. The Council believes humans might be different, but they are only guessing." Minyu listened carefully. He did not interrupt. "You will lead a team of 4, the general continued. "You will enter the cell, check the status of the chains, and try to determine what is happening to the prisoner. If possible, you will establish communication." A murmur went through the room. Communication with the dragon. General Kang held up his hand for silence. "I know it sounds impossible, but the Council believes the dragon may have information that could be vital to galactic security. They want us to try." After the briefing, Minyu met with the 3 people who would be joining him on the mission. The first was Lieutenant Sora Beak. She was 30 years old with short black hair and calm eyes. She was a xenobiologist, which meant she studied alien life forms. She had spent 5 years living with the Villani, learning their language and culture. She had once befriended a hive mind species by communicating through body movement and dance. She was smart, patient, and very hard to surprise. "I have studied every record of the dragon," Sora said when they met. "There is not much information. Most of it is legends and stories, but I have some theories." "Good," Minyu said. "We will need theories." The second team member was Sergeant Taeho Kim. He was 36 years old, tall and muscular, with a cybernetic left arm made of dark metal. He had lost his real arm in an arm wrestling match with a Krillian warrior. Most people would have been angry about that. Taeho thought it was funny. "Best bet I ever lost," he said, flexing his metal fingers. "This arm is much stronger than the old one." Taeho was a weapons and engineering specialist. If something needed to be fixed or destroyed, he was the one to call. He had a loud laugh and a quick temper, but he was fiercely loyal to his teammates. The third member was Specialist Yuna Choi. She was the youngest of the group, only 25 years old, with long dark hair that she kept tied back in a ponytail. She was quiet and thoughtful, with eyes that seemed to see more than they should. Yuna was a mind shield. Mind shields were rare among humans. They were people who had a natural resistance to psychic attacks. Telepathy, mind control, and mental pressure did not work on them. In a galaxy full of species with mental powers, mind shields were extremely valuable. "I have been tested against every known form of psychic attack," Yuna said softly. "I have never failed, but I have never faced anything like the dragon. I cannot promise anything." Minyu nodded. "I do not expect promises, I only expect effort." The 4 of them spent 3 days preparing for the mission. They studied everything they could find about the dragon, about Omega-7, and about the species that had tried to enter the cell before. The stories were not encouraging. The Vorath security team that had entered 800 years ago was the most famous case. 20 warriors had gone in. All 20 had come out broken. Some of them had never spoken again. Some of them had spoken too much, saying things in strange languages that made other people feel sick. But there were other cases too. In the early years of the imprisonment before the rule against approaching was created, many species had tried to study the dragon. Scientists, priests, Warriors, diplomats, all of them had failed. The Vellani had sent their best telepaths. The telepaths had touched the dragon's mind and immediately collapsed. They reported seeing things that could not exist, colors that had no names, sounds that were also shapes, time moving in directions that did not make sense. The Krell Collective had sent a single drone to make contact. The drone had walked into the cell and never walked out. When they checked the cameras outside the cell, they saw the drone standing at the entrance facing inward. It had stood there for 17 days before its body finally shut down. It had never moved. It had never spoken. It had simply watched. Reading these reports, Minyu felt something cold in his stomach. Not quite fear, more like awareness. He was aware that this mission could kill him. He was aware that he might never see his daughter again. But he did not back away. Humans had a saying, feel the fear and do it anyway. Minyu had lived by those words his entire life. On the fourth day, the team boarded a ship and left Earth. The journey to Omega 7 would take 1 week through hyperspace. Minyu used that time to get to know his team better. Sora spent most of her time reading and making notes. She had a theory that the dragon was not actually evil. She thought it might be simply different, so different that other species could not understand it. Tiho spent his time maintaining his arm and his weapons. He also told jokes, bad jokes, terrible jokes, but they made everyone laugh and laughter helped with the tension. Yuna spent a lot of time alone, meditating. She was preparing her mind for what was to come. She told Minyu that she could feel something at the edge of her awareness, something vast and old and patient. "It knows we are coming," she said one night, her voice barely above a whisper. "I do not know how, but it knows." Minyu did not find this comforting, but he did not let it show. When they finally arrived at Omega 7, the station was smaller than Minyu had expected. From the outside, it looked like a collection of dark metal boxes floating in empty space, cold and quiet and alone. But the cell was different. It was connected to the station by a single long corridor, and the cell itself was massive. Minyu could see it through the viewport of their ship, a sphere of dark metal nearly 3 kilometers wide, big enough to hold a small moon, big enough to hold a dragon. Corvus, the Voreth guard, met them at the docking bay. His yellow eyes moved over each of them, studying them with obvious doubt. "You are smaller than I expected," he said. Tiho grinned. "Good things come in small packages." Corvus did not laugh. He simply turned and walked away, expecting them to follow. As they walked through the cold corridors of Omega 7, Minyu could feel something changing in the air. A pressure, a weight, like the entire station was holding its breath. They were getting closer to the dragon. And the dragon was waiting. The corridor leading to the cell was long and dark. Emergency lights flickered on the walls, casting strange shadows. The air grew colder with every step. Minyu could see his breath forming small clouds in front of his face. Behind him, his team walked in silence. Sora was checking her equipment one last time. Tiho had his hand near his weapon, ready for anything. Yuna walked with her eyes half closed, her mind already reaching out, feeling the space ahead. Corvus stopped at a massive door. It was made of some metal that Minyu did not recognize. Strange symbols covered its surface, glowing faintly with blue light. "This is as far as I go," Corvus said. His voice was steady, but Minyu could see fear in his yellow eyes. "Beyond this door is the decontamination zone. Beyond that is the cell. The door has not been opened in 800 years. "Will it still work?" Tiho asked. Corvus made a sound that might have been a laugh. "It will work. The door was built to last forever, but I do not know what you will find on the other side." Minyu nodded. "Thank you for your help." Corvus looked at him for a long moment. "I think you are going to die in there," he said honestly. "But I hope I am wrong. I hope you prove everyone wrong." Then he turned and walked away, his footsteps echoing in the empty corridor. Minyu turned to his team. Ready. Sora nodded. Tiho grinned. Yuna took a deep breath and opened her eyes. Something is watching us, she said quietly. It has been watching since we arrived on the station. Now it is paying attention. Good, Minyu said. Let it pay attention. We have nothing to hide. He pressed his hand against the control panel. The massive door groaned and began to open. The decontamination zone was a series of small chambers connected by narrow passages. Ancient machines hummed to life as they entered, scanning their bodies and cleaning their suits. The lights here were brighter, but there was something wrong with them. They seemed to flicker at odd times, as if responding to something invisible. It took them 30 minutes to pass through all the chambers. When they reached the final door, Minyu paused. Last chance to turn back, he said. No one moved. Minyu smiled slightly. Good answer. He opened the final door. The cell was darkness. Not the darkness of an unlit room, not the darkness of deep space. This was something different, something alive. The darkness seemed to move and breathe. It pressed against them from all sides, thick and heavy. Their flashlights barely made a difference. The beams were swallowed by the dark, showing only a few meters ahead. Minyu could not see the walls. He could not see the ceiling. He could only see the floor beneath his feet, made of the same strange metal as the door. Scanners are not working, Sora reported, her voice tight. All readings are blank. Communications, Minyu asked. Dead, Tiho said. We are on our own. They walked forward slowly, carefully. The darkness seemed to whisper around them, not real whispers with words, but something else. Feelings, impressions, images that flickered at the edge of their minds. Yuna suddenly gasped and grabbed Minyu's arm. It is here, she said, right in front of us. Minyu stopped. He stared into the darkness, trying to see something, anything. And then two lights appeared. They were not lights from a machine. They were not lights from a fire. They were eyes, enormous eyes, each one larger than a house. They glowed with a golden color that was almost warm, almost welcoming. But there was nothing welcoming about what came next. The pressure hit them like a wave. Minyu felt it in his mind, in his chest, in his bones. It was like standing at the bottom of the ocean, like carrying a mountain on his shoulders, like hearing every scream ever screamed, all at once in perfect silence. Outside the cell in the monitoring station, every non-human who was watching the feed collapsed. Corvus fell from his chair, clutching his head. The Voreth medical staff screamed and covered their eyes. Even the machines seemed to shudder, as if the pressure was affecting them too. But inside the cell, the human team remained standing. Yuna was shaking. Blood dripped from her nose. Her mind shield was working, but it was working hard. She had never felt anything like this. The pressure was not trying to break her mind. It was trying to understand her, to read her, to know everything she was. Sora dropped to one knee, breathing hard. Her vision was blurred and she felt dizzy, but her mind was clear. She could still think. She could still function. Tiho swore loudly and colorfully. His cybernetic arm was twitching, the circuits confused by the strange energy in the air. But he was still on his feet, still ready to fight if needed. And Minyu stood straight, looking directly at those enormous golden eyes. He was afraid, of course he was afraid. Only a fool would not be afraid, but fear was just a feeling. Feelings could be controlled, feelings could be used. Slowly, deliberately, Minyu raised his hand and waved. The pressure stopped. The silence that followed was deeper than any silence Minyu had ever known. It lasted for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. Then the dragon spoke. The voice was everywhere. It was in the air. It was in the floor. It was inside their heads. It was deeper than thunder and older than stone. It shook the cell and echoed through dimensions that humans could not see. You are not afraid. It was not a question, it was a statement, a surprise statement. Minyu found his voice. It came out steady, which surprised even him. "We are afraid," he said honestly. "We are very afraid, but we have jobs to do and families waiting at home. Fear does not change that." Another silence. The golden eyes studied them. Minyu felt like he was being examined by something that could see through his skin, through his bones, through his very soul. "For 1,238 years, the dragon said slowly, beings have entered this cell. Vorath, Velani, Krell, others, all of them broke, all of them ran, all of them screamed." The eyes moved closer. Minyu could feel heat now, warmth coming from the massive body in the darkness. "But you wave," the dragon continued. "You wave as if I am a neighbor, as if I am a friend. Why?" Minyu thought about the question. He thought about his daughter, Jiwoo, and how she waved at everyone she met. Strangers, animals, even pictures on screens. She waved because she was happy to see them, because waving was a way to say hello, because it cost nothing to be friendly. "Where I come from," Minyu said, "we wave at things that scare us. It confuses them. Sometimes it makes them less scary. Sometimes it makes them into friends." The dragon was silent for a long moment. Then, impossibly, it laughed. The laugh was not cruel or mocking. It was surprised, delighted, like a very old person suddenly remembering what it felt like to be young. The darkness in the cell began to fade. Light appeared from somewhere, soft and gentle, and for the first time the human team could see the dragon clearly. It was beautiful. Its body was 3 kilometers long, curled like a sleeping cat. Its scales were black as space, but they reflected light like stars. Its wings, folded against its back, were covered in patterns that looked like galaxies. Chains of crystallized light wrapped around its limbs, connected to the walls of the cell. Its face was ancient and wise and sad, so very sad. "It has been a long time since anyone made me laugh," the dragon said softly. "Longer than you can imagine." Sora stepped forward carefully. "We came to check the chains, to see why your vital readings are changing. The council is worried." The dragon turned its great head to look at her. "The council is worried that I might escape. They are not worried about me." "Maybe," Sora admitted, "but we are worried about you. Are you dying?" Another long silence. "Yes," the dragon said finally. "I am dying. I have been dying for a very long time, but the process is accelerating now. I have perhaps 1 year left, perhaps less." Yuna spoke up, her voice still shaky from the mental pressure. "What is killing you?" The dragon's eyes moved to her. They were gentle now, not threatening. "Not what," it said. "Who? The same thing that was killing the galaxy before I was captured. The thing I tried to stop. The thing no one believed was real." Minyu felt a chill run down his spine. "What are you talking about?" The dragon lifted its great head. In the soft light it looked impossibly tired, impossibly old, but also impossibly determined. "Sit down, little humans," it said, "and I will tell you a story, a true story, one that has been forgotten for over 1,000 years." The team exchanged glances. Then slowly they sat down on the cold metal floor. And the dragon began to speak. The dragon's voice was soft now, almost gentle. It was the voice of a storyteller, not a monster. The human team sat on the floor of the cell, looking up at the enormous creature that had terrified the galaxy for over 1,000 years. "In the beginning," the dragon said, "there was only darkness, and in that darkness there was music." It paused, its golden eyes looking at something far away, something beyond the walls of the cell, something beyond time itself. "I am not a dragon. That is just a name the younger species gave me because they had no other words. My true name cannot be spoken in sounds you can hear, but if I had to translate it, it would be something like, 'He who sang the first stars.'" Sora leaned forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. "You are one of the first architects, the beings who shaped the universe." The dragon nodded slowly. "We were many once. We sang the stars into existence. We shaped the galaxies. We filled the void with light and life. It was beautiful work, sacred work. What happened, Minyu asked. We grew tired, the dragon said simply. Creating a universe is exhausting. One by one, my brothers and sisters fell into the long sleep. Some became stars. Some became planets. Some simply faded away into the background energy of space. I was one of the last to remain awake. I stayed because I wanted to see what the younger species would become. I wanted to see the universe grow up. Its eyes darkened slightly, but while we slept, something else woke up. The hollow, Yuna whispered. She did not know where the word came from. It simply appeared in her mind. The dragon looked at her with something like respect. Your mind is strong, little one. Yes, the hollow, it came from the spaces between dimensions, from the cracks in reality where our songs could not reach. It was not a being like you or me. It was an absence, a hunger, a void that wanted to consume everything. Tiho shifted uncomfortably. How do you fight a void? You do not fight it, the dragon said. You contain it, you starve it. The hollow feeds on life, on energy, on existence itself. The only way to stop it was to keep it away from its food. The dragon lifted one of its massive limbs slightly. The chains of light wrapped around it clinked softly. For millions of years I watched, I protected. I burned infected systems before the hollow could spread. I was a guardian, not a destroyer. But the younger species did not understand. They only saw fire. They only saw death. The Great Celestial War, Minyu said slowly. That was you fighting the hollow. Yes and no. I was fighting the hollow, but the younger species thought I was attacking them. The hollow had already infected 3 star systems. It had taken control of the beings who lived there. They were puppets, speaking with borrowed voices, begging for help. The other species heard their cries and thought I was the enemy. Sora's face was pale. The fleets that attacked you were trying to save their friends, the dragon finished. I understand why they fought me. I do not blame them, but I could not let the infection spread. I burned the 3 systems. I destroyed the fleets. It was the only way. Why did you not explain? Yuna asked. Why did you not tell them the truth? The dragon's laugh was bitter now, full of old pain. I tried. For 300 years after they captured me, I spoke. I begged. I showed them visions of the truth, but they could not hear me. My voice was too loud for their minds. My images were too strange for their eyes. When I spoke gently, they heard roaring. When I showed them the hollow, they saw only madness. It lowered its great head until its eyes were level with the humans. The older species have minds that were shaped by slow evolution. They learned to fear what they did not understand. When they looked at me, they saw only their fear reflected back. But we are different, Minyu said. It was not a question. You are very different, the dragon agreed. Your species evolved in chaos. Your world tried to kill you in 1,000 ways, and you survived by adapting. You learned to look at things that frightened you. You learned to ask questions instead of running away. Or maybe we are just stubborn, Tiho said with a grin. The dragon smiled, actually smiled. It was a strange sight on that ancient face. Stubbornness is a form of bravery, it said. And bravery is what the galaxy needs right now, because the hollow did not die, it was only wounded. For 1,238 years it has been hiding in the dark matter at the galaxy's core, growing, feeding, waiting. Waiting for what? Sora asked. For me to die. The words hung in the air like ice. The dragon gestured toward the chains that bound its body. These were not made to trap me. I allowed myself to be captured. The chains are a seal. My life force, my song, flows through them and creates a barrier that the hollow cannot cross. As long as I live, the galaxy is protected. But you are dying, Yuna said softly. Yes, my strength is fading, the barrier is weakening. I can feel the hollow pushing against it every day. It knows I am dying. It is patient. It has waited over 1,000 years. It can wait a little longer. Minyu stood up slowly. His mind was racing, processing everything he had heard. The dragon was not a prisoner. It was a guardian. It had sacrificed its freedom to protect a galaxy that hated it. And now it was dying, and no one knew the truth. "We have to tell the council," Minyu said firmly. "We have to show them what you showed us." "They will not believe you," the dragon said sadly. "I have tried." "You tried with species who could not handle your voice," Minyu interrupted. "We are different, remember. We are stubborn, and we have something you did not have before." He pointed at Yuna. "A mind shield. Someone who can enter your mind and verify your memories without going mad. Someone who can carry your truth to the council in a way they can understand." The dragon's eyes widened slightly. It was a small movement, but on a face that large, it was easy to see. "You would do this?" it asked. "You would stand before the Galactic Council and speak for me. They will call you liars. They will accuse you of being corrupted." "Probably," Minyu agreed. "But that is their problem, not ours. Our job is to tell the truth and let them deal with it." Yuna stepped forward. Her face was pale but determined. "I can do it. I can link with your mind and record your memories. It will be hard. Maybe the hardest thing I have ever done, but I can do it." The dragon looked at her for a long moment. Then it lowered its head even further, until its massive forehead was almost touching the floor. "Little human," it said softly, "in 1,238 years of imprisonment, you are the first being to offer me kindness. The first to ask questions instead of making accusations. The first to see me as something other than a monster." "You are not a monster," Sora said firmly. "You are a hero who has been punished for doing the right thing." "And we are going to fix that," Tiho added. The dragon was silent for a long moment. When it spoke again, its voice was thick with emotion. "Then let us begin. Time is short and there is much to share." For the next 3 hours, Yuna linked her mind with the dragon. It was painful. It was overwhelming. She saw things that human minds were never meant to see. She felt the birth of stars. She heard the songs of the first architects. She witnessed the horror of the Hollow as it consumed entire worlds. But she also felt the dragon's love, its hope, its endless, patient faith that someday someone would understand. When the link was finally broken, Yuna collapsed into Tiho's arms. Blood was streaming from her nose and ears, but she was smiling. "I have it," she whispered. "I have everything." Minyu turned to the dragon. "What happens now?" The dragon rose slightly, its chains clinking. It looked stronger than before, hopeful. "Now you go back to your council. You show them the truth, and if they believe you, if they truly believe, then we fight together. And if they do not believe us—" The dragon smiled sadly. "Then the galaxy will learn the truth eventually, when the Hollow breaks through, when the stars begin to go dark, but by then it will be too late." Minyu nodded grimly. "Then we better make them believe." He gathered his team. They were tired, shaken, and changed forever, but they were also determined. They had come to this cell expecting to find a monster. Instead, they had found an ally. As they walked toward the exit, the dragon's voice followed them. "Thank you, little humans. Whatever happens next, thank you for listening." Minyu did not look back. He did not need to. He knew what he had to do. The galaxy was about to get a very difficult lesson in truth. The Galactic Council Chamber was the largest room Minyu had ever seen. It was located on the capital world of Velani Prime, a planet of silver towers and endless clouds. The chamber itself was shaped like a bowl, with seats rising up on all sides. Representatives from every major species in the galaxy sat in those seats, watching and waiting. Minyu stood in the center of the chamber with his team. They looked small. They looked fragile. They looked like exactly what they were, 4 humans standing before the judgment of 1,000 worlds. The High Speaker, an ancient Vellani with skin like polished moonlight, raised one slender hand for silence. "Captain Minyu Park," the High Speaker said, You have returned from Omega-7 with claims that have disturbed this council greatly. You say that the dragon is not our enemy. You say that it has been protecting us all along. You ask us to release a creature that burned 3 star systems and killed billions of lives. A rumble of anger went through the chamber. The Voreth representative, a large male with dark green scales, stood up. "This is madness," he shouted. "The humans have been corrupted. The dragon has poisoned their minds just like it poisoned my ancestors. They should be quarantined immediately." Other voices joined in, calling for the humans to be arrested, examined, or removed from the council entirely. Minyu waited patiently for the noise to die down. When it was finally quiet again, he spoke. "I understand your anger," he said calmly. "I understand your fear. If I were in your position, I would feel the same way. But I am asking you to do something difficult. I am asking you to look at evidence before making a judgment." He turned to Yuna. She was still pale and weak from her mental link with the dragon, but she stood straight and steady. "Specialist Yuna Choi is a mind shield," Minyu continued. "Her mind cannot be corrupted or controlled. She linked directly with the dragon and recorded its memories. With your permission, she can share those memories with a neutral telepath who can verify their authenticity." The chamber erupted in arguments. Some species refused to even consider the possibility. Others were curious despite their fear. The debate went on for hours. In the end, curiosity won. The council appointed 3 telepaths from different species to examine Yuna's memories. The examination took 2 days. During that time, Minyu and his team were kept in comfortable rooms under heavy guard. They were not treated as criminals, but they were not treated as friends either. On the 3rd day, the telepaths delivered their report. The memories were real. The chamber fell into stunned silence as the lead telepath, a Velani elder named Saurais, explained what they had found. The dragon's memories were genuine. They could not have been created or implanted. What the humans had reported was true. The dragon had been fighting the Hollow. The 3 star systems had been infected. The fleets had been protecting puppets, not people. For over 1,000 years, the galaxy had been punishing its only defender. The Voreth representative collapsed into his seat, his face gray with shock. His ancestors had led the capture of the dragon. His species had considered it their greatest victory. Now they learned it was their greatest mistake. "What do we do?" someone asked. The voice was small and lost. Minyu stepped forward again. "We free the dragon. We work together to fight the Hollow. We do what we should have done 1,238 years ago. We listen." The vote was not unanimous. Some species refused to believe, even with proof. Some were too afraid to change, but the majority voted yes. The dragon would be freed. The journey back to Omega-7 was different this time. Minyu's ship was accompanied by a fleet of council vessels. Representatives from a dozen species had come to witness the moment. Some came with hope. Some came with weapons ready, just in case. Minyu understood both reactions. When they arrived at the station, everything felt different. The corridors that had seemed so dark and cold before now felt almost welcoming. As they approached the cell, Minyu could feel something in the air. Anticipation. Hope. The dragon was waiting. The team entered the cell alone just as they had before, but this time the darkness was not so heavy. The dragon's eyes were brighter, warmer. "I felt the vote," the dragon said. "I felt the chains loosen slightly when the decision was made. You did it. You actually did it." "Not yet," Minyu said. "We still need to remove the chains, and you need to help us fight the Hollow." The dragon nodded its great head. "I will. I have waited 1,238 years for this moment. I will not waste it." The engineers came then, Voreth and Velani and human working together. They studied the chains of crystallized light. They found the release mechanisms that had never been touched. Slowly, carefully, they began to unlock them. As each chain fell away, the dragon grew stronger. Colors returned to its scales. Light filled its eyes. The weariness that had covered it like a blanket began to lift. When the last chain fell, the dragon rose. It stretched its wings for the first time in over a millennium. They spread out across the cell, impossibly vast, covered in patterns of stars and galaxies. They were beautiful beyond words. The dragon opened its mouth and roared. But this was not the roar of destruction that the old stories described. This was something else entirely. It was a song, a melody that had not been heard since the universe was young. It was the song of creation, the song of hope, the song of stars being born. Across the galaxy, things changed. Stars that had been dimming for centuries suddenly burned brighter. Dark regions of space where nothing had lived for ages began to stir with new energy. And deep in the galaxy's core, hidden in the dark matter where it had been waiting, the hollow screamed. The sound was not heard with ears. It was felt with souls. Every being in the galaxy felt a moment of pure cold terror followed by something else, something warm, something protective. The dragon's song was a shield. The council fleet watched from a safe distance as the dragon emerged from its cell for the first time in 1,238 years. It flew slowly at first, like someone learning to walk again after a long illness. But with each passing moment it grew stronger, faster, more confident. Finally, it stopped before the human ship. Its enormous face filled the viewport, golden eyes looking directly at Minu and his team. "You have given me something precious," the dragon said. "Not just freedom, hope, faith, the belief that even after 1,000 years of hatred, things can change." Minu smiled. "We are stubborn like that." The dragon laughed, and this time the sound was pure joy. "The battle against the Hollow will not be easy," it said seriously. "It will take years, maybe centuries. Many will die, but now we have a chance. Now we can fight together instead of fighting each other." "What do you need from us?" Sora asked. "Your voices," the dragon said. "Your courage, your willingness to ask questions and listen to answers. These things are rare in the universe. They are more valuable than any weapon." It turned to look at the fleet of ships behind them, at the representatives of dozens of species who had come to witness this moment. "Tell them," it said, "tell them that the old ways are ending. Tell them that the time of fear is over. Tell them that the young species have shown the old ones how to be brave." Then it turned and flew toward the stars, leaving a trail of light behind it like a comet. 3 months later, Minu was back home in Busan. He was sitting in his kitchen, eating breakfast with his family. Jiwoo was telling him about her school. Yoonji was laughing at something on the news. The news was different these days. Reports of strange lights in distant systems. Stories of stars burning brighter than they had in centuries. Updates on the great alliance that was forming to fight the Hollow. And sometimes, late at night, people would report seeing something in the sky, a shape like a dragon flying between the stars, watching, protecting. Minu's communicator beeped. It was a message from General Kang. "The Council has created a new position," the message said. "Ambassador to the First Architect. They want you for the job. Also, they are officially recognizing humanity as a full member of the Inner Council. Congratulations." Yoonji looked at the message over his shoulder. "That sounds important." "It is," Minu said. "Will you have to go away again?" Minu thought about it. He thought about the dragon flying through space. He thought about the Hollow waiting in the darkness. He thought about all the work that still needed to be done. Then he looked at his daughter, still talking about her school, completely unaware of how the universe had changed. "Yes," he said finally, "but I will always come back. That is what we do." Tiho's message arrived next. It was a picture of him arm wrestling with a Voreth and winning. Then Sora's message. She had been asked to lead a new xenobiology institute focused on studying the first architects. Then Yuna's message. She had been offered a teaching position, training new mind shields for the battles to come. Minyu smiled at each message. His team was scattered now, but they were still a team. They would always be a team. Outside, the sun was rising over Busan. It seemed brighter than before, warmer, as if it knew that something good had happened, as if it was celebrating too. The dragon was free, the hollow would be fought, the galaxy was changing. And it had all started because 4 humans had been stubborn enough to walk into a cell and wave. In the old stories, humans were small and weak and insignificant. They were newcomers to a universe that did not need them. But the old stories were wrong. The stars remembered who had saved them. The dragon remembered who had believed in it, and the future was brighter because of it. Minyu finished his breakfast and hugged his daughter goodbye. Then he went outside to begin another day of impossible work. Behind him, somewhere among the stars, a dragon was singing. And the universe was finally listening.